What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back, and we are on week 9 of our college football preview and picks. We're just going to jump right into it. Ty, you got me by 1 last week, and Andy took, the lead by 1 game for the year. How you feeling going into week 9 here?
I feel a little better. I finally got back on track after 2 really bad weeks. But I guess our dividing game I'm looking at is the Iowa State game. So there were some questionable calls in that game. So I'm glad I got the benefit of the doubt for that one. But it should be interesting to see how it plays out now as we're picking a lot more games.
Your school's on a bye this week, and then from now on, we're only picking the ranked teams as our games now, just because it's starting to get in that time where it's college football playoff. And if you're not ranked at this point, you pretty much don't really have a shot. But it's Alabama, Texas A&M, and a surprise UTSA is they're undefeated still, and they're on a bye. But week 1, first game of the week, you got Coastal Carolina, 24th team in the nation versus a pretty okay Troy team on Thursday. I'm going with Coastal Carolina. It's just kind of hard to overlook them, and they're coming off a loss. So I think a little revenge here.
Yeah, I think they got humbled a little bit last week against App State, so they should easily handle Troy. But I like these games. Gives me something to watch on a Thursday.
And then our first Saturday game, you got Cincinnati, who's looked pretty unstoppable this year against a pretty terrible Tulane team. Nothing pretty much to talk about here except a big blowout for Cincinnati.
Yeah, they should win easily. Struggle a little with Navy, but they should easily bounce back and dominate this week.
And, the biggest game of the week, unbiased opinion, Michigan State really does have a shot to win this game. Like, there's no denying it. They got Kenneth Walker. I mean, I'll defend State here. Here. You got Kenneth Walker, who's a potential Heisman favorite, and their defensive line is a lot better than people think they are. They're ranking they got 3 or 4 guys that rank in the top 10 in the Big Ten. They get QB pressures, which is a stat you got to look at just because that creates more drama, more things that could happen in a sense on defense and create turnovers. But I'm still going with Michigan. I feel like it's just hard to pick against my own school here. That my favorite team wise.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go with my team in Michigan, but Michigan State's a really good team that has been overlooked all year. I mean, they have a great offense. Obviously, you got Kenneth Walker, Heisman candidate, and then honestly, their special teams is something that people forget about. They have a great kicker in Matt Coughlin, who's been there about 100 years, and their punter, I think, is one of the best in the country in terms of average. So that's something that gets overlooked, and that's why they're 7-0. But I got to rock with Michigan here. I think they're going to be able to stop the run on them. I look for Aiden Hutchinson to have a big game.
Another game, if you're not a big fan of the Michigan State, Iowa and Wisconsin. I'm going with Iowa here just because I think it's time for them to get back in the win column and, start picking it up where they were and have been all year. But you're going with Wisconsin here. Kind of interesting pick there.
Yeah, that over-under almost makes me laugh, but it's pretty accurate for this game. Neither of these teams are going to move the ball very well. These are 2 good defenses and 2 poor offenses, to be honest. So we'll see who can score most and who can run the ball better. But I like Wisconsin here after what I saw from Iowa against Purdue, where they not only got upset but basically got dominated. So I think their slide's going to continue here. And Wisconsin's due for a big win this year.
You got 16th Baylor versus Texas, who is just now unranked. I'm going with Baylor here just because I think the Big 12, needs someone else that can pose a threat to Oklahoma. And I think Baylor's going to be that team this year. It's just kind of interesting to see how this game will shake out, though, just because Texas could play like a 7-0 team, or they could play like a 2-5 team. It's just kind of what Texas you're going to get that week, honestly.
Yeah, this is a pretty good Texas team, a lot better than their record. They just can't really hold a lead this year. So we'll see how that goes this week. But I just had a gut feeling that Baylor is a little too overhyped with that 6-1 record. So I think Texas could go in there and finally get a big win for this season. And, it is a big game for Baylor. So if they can win it, they definitely have a chance to maybe compete with Oklahoma, but I got to go with Texas here.
And then you got a great ACC matchup here. You got 23 Pitt hosting Miami. This Pitt team has been a big surprise out of the ACC. Everyone's thinking Clemson beginning of the year, Pitt second or third, but Pitt's number one, and it's pretty obvious. They beat Clemson last week, and both of us took Clemson, but obviously that didn't work out. And I just think Pitt's going to keep it rolling, and they're really the only shot that ACC has in getting in the playoff.
Yep, I agree. In my opinion, Pitt has definitely emerged as the best team in the ACC, and I think they continue winning here. Kenny Pickett's a fun quarterback to watch if you guys haven't had a chance to watch him. So I look for them to dominate against a once great program that's turned into a dumpster fire in Miami.
At 2, you got Iowa State, who's just now ranked again after beating Oklahoma State last week, going into West Virginia. We're both going to Iowa State here. I think, Campbell has just finally found the right team and the right, mojo there, and I think they're just going to keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's that typical late season surge for Iowa State, and that should continue this week against a poor West Virginia team all around. So I think they continue winning, get 6-2.
You got the best team in the country, hands down, Georgia, going into the swamp in Florida. This Florida team, though, does not play like they're 4-3. They play, I say, a little above their record, 5-2, 6-1. They definitely wouldn't be an undefeated team, but I just think this game is still going to be a blowout for Georgia. They've just looked dominant in every single game they're in, besides the Clemson game, first game of the year. Obviously it's first game, but they still found a way to squeak one out there. And then since then, it's just been blowout city for Georgia, and I just see that to continue here.
Yeah, it is a big rivalry, so maybe you get a big performance out of Florida, but I just don't see that Georgia defense giving up enough points for them to really put up a fight in this game. So I got to keep rocking with Georgia, although you never know with Florida. They put up a lot of points on LSU, so maybe they cover that spread, but I don't see them winning this game.
And then on ABC at 3:30, you got Oklahoma with Spencer Williams. What's his name? Caleb Williams. Yeah. Caleb Williams. And they're such a better team with him now rather than Spencer Rattler. Rattler was kind of more like the drama queen. He's the pretty boy. And, you got Caleb Williams in there who's just going in there and doing his job, making them win games. And I think this Oklahoma team poses a real threat to the college football playoff. They definitely can score. That's clearly obvious. But if they face that Georgia team first round, it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. But for this week, I'm going with Oklahoma.
Yeah, they got a little dicey last week for Oklahoma playing against Kansas, and I think they were down 10-0 at the half. So hopefully that was just kind of a fluky week for them, although they've had some scares early in the season. But I look for Caleb Williams to have a big game this week and get back on track, and they should probably blow out Texas Tech, and I would think they should cover.
On Fox at 3:30, got Oregon against the pretty poor Colorado team. Not much to be said about Oregon after suffering a loss a few weeks ago, but now, they got a pretty easy task in Colorado, and I expect them to win big.
This is one I would actually think about taking the spread for the underdog here. I think Colorado, although they're not a strong team by any means, 24 is a lot of points. And Oregon played Cal at home 2 weeks ago, and I think they won by 7. So this Oregon team doesn't really blow anybody out. Obviously, they'll win the game, but if you're looking for a game to bet, I might take Colorado in the points here.
At 4, you got, actually, I'm gonna take that comment back about Pitt that we were talking about. Wake Forest is actually the most interesting team here in the ACC, and I've just been kept picking them. You've kind of picked against them a few times, but they just got something going here. And Sam Hartman, the QB1 on Netflix, he's really been lighting it up for this Wake Forest team, and I expect them to get to 8-0 here and throw their hat in the ring in that college football playoff conversation.
Yeah, it's been interesting. He was probably the least hyped guy of that season on QB1 because obviously I think he shared it with Spencer Rattler. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, and now obviously he's probably emerged as the best of those three guys. So interesting to see that. And I think he'll keep rolling over a really poor Duke team here. And he's a guy to watch out for. And this is a team to watch out for going forward.
At 7, you got potentially a huge game in the SEC. Ole Miss needs to win this game to keep their title chances alive and even SEC chances alive. Um, and that's why I'm going with Ole Miss just strictly because of the QB play of Matt Corral. And, Ole Miss finds ways to win games. It may not be pretty, but Lane Kiffin and company, I think they'll get it done on the road here.
Yeah, Auburn's really surprised me this year with some of their strong performances. Like they beat Arkansas a couple of weeks ago in a game I didn't think they would win. So I got to keep rocking with them here. It's a tough place to play, and I think their defense is going to be able to slow down Ole Miss just enough. Although this is a big game for Ole Miss, they still have their playoff chances right in front of them. But I think they take a big hit in the loss here.
And you're going with a big upset here. I'm going with the Kentucky team who, had a bye last week and then got dismantled by Georgia the week before. But I think they're going to get on the right track here and move to 7-1. But why are you going with Mississippi State here?
I just think same reason I took Texas over Baylor. It's just a 6-1 record, but I don't think it's a 6-1 team. Kentucky's a good team, but I think they might fall in love with that record too much, like Baylor, and going into a tough environment on the road in a night game. I just have a feeling Mississippi State's going to clip them.
And then you got this Kansas team who last week gave Oklahoma a scare. Let's see if they can do it again to Oklahoma State. It's not a home game, though, so I don't really see that happening. And Oklahoma State needs to bounce back after that upset of Iowa State last week to at least keep their chances alive. They're pretty minimum right now, but they got to keep winning to keep getting those odds up.
This is another betting game for me. I don't know how great I'm going to be at this, so I'm just throwing it out there. But I like the under in this game because I don't see Kansas scoring more than 7. So something to look out for. But I mean, it's a 30-point spread. Obviously, I got to go with Oklahoma State big. So might as well throw a little betting advice in there.
And then on ESPN2 at 7, you got SMU, who is 19th in the nation, undefeated, 7-0, versus a really good Houston team at 6-1. Kind of surprised that Houston honestly isn't even ranked yet. But I'm going with SMU just because there's always that independent, or not independent, but non-conference, non-Power 5 team that just kind of surprises you every year. And I think SMU is that team this year. Unfortunately, they won't make the playoff just because lack of schedule. That's why they need to increase the playoff to 12 teams. But this SMU team, I think they're going to get it done on the road and beat Houston.
Yeah, this Houston team has really flown under the radar at 6-1. I mean, this is a well-coached team with Dana Holgerson and playing at home in a night game. Again, I got to rock with Houston here. And I think they might be the team that could challenge Cincinnati more than SMU in this conference. So if Houston wins this game, you're going to see a Cincinnati Houston American Championship most likely. So that could get interesting.
And then at 7:30, you got the biggest game other than Michigan State so far in the Big Ten. Ohio State is projected to win big. Penn State's coming off of that surprising loss, you could say, last week, even with Sean Clifford back. But, if Penn State can pull it off here, the Big Ten is going to be very interesting going forward because whoever wins that Michigan State game will be in sole possession of first place if Penn State can pull this off. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's just tough to bet against Ohio State after that Oregon loss. This team has looked like a completely different team, and they're clicking on all cylinders right now. And I'm going with Ohio State.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot about Penn State this week. Obviously, that was an embarrassing loss last week. There's no way around that, losing to Illinois at home. But there's rumors of James Franklin maybe taking the USC job or the LSU job. So we'll see. Do they kind of just pack it in and get blown out by Ohio State, or do they really fight and compete this week? So we'll see which team we get, but I can't pick against Ohio State in this game, night game at home, and obviously after Penn State's loss.
And then you got NBC's team, Notre Dame, 6-1. Everybody's written off this team after that Cincinnati loss. I think everyone needs to pump the brakes a little bit on that. This Notre Dame team doesn't play like really crappy teams to get to 6-1. Like they're still playing these ACC teams. They've been scheduling better, but they're still scared to play Michigan. But this Notre Dame team, I think, can go 11-1 here on out. And, if a few teams keep losing, like we've seen, there's been I think four ranked teams, I think, have lost every week this year. And, if it's top 10 teams, Notre Dame can slowly keep creeping back up there. And especially if Cincinnati, stays winning and they go undefeated this year, it's tough to say, oh, that was a bad loss at home where, Cincinnati's a top 2 team in the country right now. But for this game, Notre Dame will win, and I think they're going to win bigger than that 3.5. That's something to look at as well if you're betting, and because I just think personally this North Carolina team is just overrated.
Yeah, North Carolina definitely has the talent, but they haven't really put it together at all this year. And I'll go off what you said. I think Notre Dame's going to finish 11-1. Looking at their schedule, I don't really see a game that they'll lose, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see where they finish in the rankings. Obviously, not having a conference championship, but I think they continue to win. I mean, they've been looking a lot better, dominating USC last week, but I just don't think they have the opponent where they can get a big win and vault themselves into the playoff. But I think this is definitely going to be an 11-1 New Year's 16. So they should win this week.
And right now, I just looked up Notre Dame's schedule. Their toughest task is Virginia on November 13th, who's 6-2 at their place. So that could be potentially a game where they'll be ranked and Notre Dame has to go in there, win a game. But other than that, they got 1-6 Navy, 3-4 Georgia Tech, 3-4 Stanford. So at worst, if they do lose that game, 10-2. Still a successful season though under Brian Kelly if that were to happen. And speaking of that Virginia team, I'm going with Virginia to pull off the upset against BYU. I just think that the ACC has prepared them for this game. And it's time for Virginia football to be ranked, not basketball, football. It's time for them to be ranked. And I think I'm confident in this upset here.
I got to rock with BYU here. And again, just like last week, I got to give them their props. They just flood their schedule with Power 5 teams, even being an independent. So got to respect them for that. I do think they are a different team at home compared to on the road. So I think you'll see a strong BYU performance in this game. And they've rattled off some pretty decent wins this year. And I think that continues here.
And our last game of the week, you got 7-0 San Diego State at home versus a very tough 6-2 Fresno State team. Agree to disagree here. You're just not on that San Diego State bandwagon, and you're all on that Fresno State bandwagon, where I'm kind of the other way around here. This Fresno State team, yeah, they're good, but they got to lose some point to a really good team, and I just think that week is going to be this week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my strategy is if I pick against San Diego State every week, eventually I'll get it right. But in all honesty, I like Fresno State's talent that they have, and I think it will come together in this game. They were really close to winning at Oregon, and then they did win at home against at UCLA. But I think this is a win that can really vault them into a Mountain West championship kind of situation. So I think it's a really big game for them. And I think going on the road, they're going to be able to pull it off and finally give San Diego State and Brady Hoke his first loss.
But that'll do it for today's video. Moving forward, we will be covering college basketball. We're going to start to get that content out as I believe it starts in 2 weeks is tip-off. So we're going to start to be putting some preseason content out there. And we might do a little conference previews, top 25 previews, And even, we might throw a March Madness bracket on our preseason bracket of what we think will happen before it all starts. But for right now, make sure to like, comment, subscribe so you can stay up to date on all things Bench Buddies. And the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.